So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 has now been out for a full weekend, so I feel like it's time that we finally talk about some spoilers, at least in the UK. If you're from the US, I'm sure the movie's not out yet. So if you haven't seen the movie, this is a major spoiler warning. It'll say spoilers in the title anyway, so you probably wouldn't have clicked this video. But if you want to talk about some spoilers with me, or if you just don't care about the movie, you want to hear some spoilers, this is the place to be. So let's get right into this. First off, the movie starts with a really great song, which they refer to as like the best song ever in the movie, and I was like, yeah, it's a pretty great song. It's Brandy by Looking Glass, and it actually starts off with Star-Lord's father, played by Kurt Russell, and his mother in the early days before Star-Lord was born, and we hear this song, and we see like this sort of a seed in the ground, which comes into play a bit later on, and we find out more about that, so we'll talk about that a bit later. But the first action scene in this movie is really great. You know the obelisk from the trailer? Everybody knows that it's going to be the first action scene of the film anyway. But the way they do it in this movie is so good, because it's not a full-on action scene. You know, you get to see the Guardians fighting this thing, but in the forefront is Baby Groot, looking as cute as you could possibly imagine, dancing to Mr. Blue Sky by Electric Light Orchestra. And it was such a good scene, because it's like all this stuff's happening in the background. People are getting, you know, thrown around, and you've got these like, you know, the Guardians are fighting, and you've got these monsters and stuff, and it's just Baby Groot dancing around to this song, and it's like, I already love this. This is already topping the dance scene from the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was just great, you know. Even Drax, when he falls on the ground and Groot just automatically stops dancing as a callback to the post-credit scene from the first one, it was really good. Then this movie gets into the action, and this is the sort of thing that I feel like didn't need to be in the movie, and that is the Sovereign, led by Aisha. So the reason the Guardians are on this planet is because they're protecting these batteries from, you know, these creatures, and they're protecting them for the Sovereign, and the Sovereign are obviously paying them. They're like heroes for hire now, because they saved the galaxy once, you know, why not do it again? Why not do it multiple times? So they're protecting these batteries, but then Rocket, being the little bastard he is, robs them, and the Sovereign go after the Guardians, and that's sort of the subplot of this movie. You know, they're set up as the main villains, but they're not really. There is a main villain in this film, but there's not really a full-on threat to the Guardians from the Sovereign. They're just there to, I guess, flesh out the movie a bit. I mean, I didn't dislike them. They were animated well, or makeup well. I guess it's makeup, it's not really animated. But they're following them in these ships, and these ships are like remote controlled. It reminded me a bit of the remote control cars from Fast and Furious, except it actually makes sense here because it's a sci-fi, so it makes more sense for these ships to be controlled by monitors. And yeah, it was really good. It was like, I love the line where it's like they're like killing these people, and it's like, yeah, we're not actually killing people. It's just these machines. That was great. And then the Guardians sort of split up, and this is where Star-Lord's father comes into play, because as they're fighting the Sovereign, you know, they get overpowered, the Milano gets, like, destroyed, and they land on this planet, and they get saved from the Sovereign by an unknown person, and that person turns out to be Ego, the living planet, so they actually land on the planet Ego, and that's what I liked about this. Ego wasn't actually Kurt Russell, that was just, like, him being like putting himself into a human body, but the actual planet is Ego, so Star-Lord's father does turn out to be Ego, the living planet. You do actually see like the face on the planet. It's never like, you know, talking like in the comics or anything, but you do see it, and you do find out that that is Ego's true form. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So yeah, they meet Ego, and he explains that he's been looking for Star-Lord this whole time. He's been searching for him, and he's finally found him. Mantis works as his sort of, you know, I guess sort of like an assistant in a way. I don't know. They never really explain. She sort of helps him sleep because she can like read other people's memories, and that's where the really funny scene from the trailer with her saying about Star-Lord having sexual feelings for Gomorrah. That scene's actually very funny in the film. It's even better in context. Drax steals the show, like I said, and that is one of the reasons why his relationship with Mantis is great, and I loved that. But yeah, so they meet Ego, and he explains that he was, you know, Star-Lord's mother's lover, and that he really loved her, and the reason he didn't return to Earth, because there's this really emotional scene where Star-Lord's like, if you loved her so much, why did you leave her? And it turns out he left her for more than that reason, but the reason he gives is because he loved her so much that he couldn't stand to leave her on Earth, or couldn't stand to return to Earth, the place where she died. Not leave her on Earth, because that's obviously where she was. And we find out that the reason why Peter Quill was abducted in the first movie is by Yondu is because he was supposed to return him to Ego, and we actually find out why he didn't return him to Ego. But let's talk about Yondu, Rocket, and Groot for a second. There's this really cool prison break sequence, which was awesome. It's a scene you see in the trailer with all the bodies floating, and it's like a slow motion scene. They're walking out, and Yondu's just like destroyed them all with his arrow. I mean, the soundtrack, Awesome Mix Volume 2, is a really, really good soundtrack for this film, and that is one of the reasons it shines in these action scenes. Like, the first scene with Mr. Blue Sky was great, but it really adds emotion to the plot with the songs, because there's a scene where Peter Quill's talking to his father about the song Brandy, and he finds out that that's his mother's favourite song, and they're sort of talking about what the lyrics mean, and it really does relate to the character. So I like the way that James Gunn used really good songs, but he also had a reason for using them in most scenes as well. Like, I mean, some of them are just throwaway songs, which are really great songs that really do work well in action scenes, but some of them actually have a meaning to the plot, and I really like that, because in the first one they didn't really, but I just thought that was great. So yeah, the prison break sequence, this is where we get Stan Lee's best cameo yet. So we find out that they have to hop like 700 planets or wormholes to get to Ego, to get back to Peter Quill and the rest of the crew. And they're just hopping through these like wormholes, and their faces are going all distorted and stuff. And then they go through one wormhole, and you see Stan Lee. You remember that theory about Stan Lee being the Watcher in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Yeah, it's confirmed here, and it was really great. He was talking to these Watchers on the moon, and I was like, well, that is amazing, because I've heard that theory so many times, and I love that, and I just loved that it was confirmed. So that was a really great cameo. It's probably my favourite Stan Lee cameo to date, so that was awesome. But yeah, when they finally get to Ego, they're all together, and you've also got the relationship between Nebula and Gomorrah, and they do really sort of flesh that out in this one, because in the first one they were just sort of enemies. There's not really a reason why, it's just Thanos is a dick, and we find out what Thanos has done. And the thing is, he always said that Gomorrah was his favourite daughter, and it's because Gomorrah was quite a competitive person, and every time Gomorrah did something better than Nebula, he would remove a piece of her and replace her with machinery. And I was like, that is deep to do that to your own daughter. It's deep to do it to anyone, but holy crap. And that made me really feel for Nebula in this movie, and I actually thought, yeah, I can see why she's a bit of a villain in the first one. I can see why she really wants to get revenge against Gomorrah, but I like the way that they actually settled it and the way they actually are family in this film. I mean, at the end, Nebula sort of disappears from the Guardians and goes after Thanos herself, so I'm guessing we will definitely see her in Infinity War. And because of what Thanos done to her, I mean, I would be more than happy to see her get the finishing, hand on Thanos. I would love to see her take that dick out. But, we'll have to wait till Infinity War to see that. So anyway, when they get to Ego, he actually reveals his full plan. So Star-Lord finds out that he can harness the power of the planet, and he can make things with his mind, like energy and stuff. And we find out that is really cool. And it's like, yeah, we also find out Star-Lord is immortal and that he's a god. And it's like, whoa, I thought Star-Lord was just a regular dude. I knew he had like different species in him, but holy crap. And yeah, we find all that out. But then we find out that Ego, his full plan was actually that he wanted to sort of take human life. And it was like, what? The reason he had Star-Lord is because he wanted to take over like all of the human life in the world. And it's like, okay, that is pretty deep. And that's what I said about the fact that I didn't like the direction they were taking Ego in, because we spent the whole first movie building up to Star-Lord's father, and when we finally find his father, it turns out he's a dick and that he's the villain of the film. And it's like, oh, well, I guess that was a waste of time then. But no, it wasn't in the end, and they actually do have a reason for doing it, and there is actually a really emotional sort of thing that happens, but which we'll get to a bit later. But then yeah, we find out that Ego is actually the villain, and the Guardians have to stop him, and that's the final action scene of the movie. I mean, it was shown a lot in the trailers, but we never knew that it was actually from that. So most of the scenes from the trailers are actually taking place on Ego, the planet itself, and it was like, okay. And then we find out something that really tugs at the heartstrings, and that is the fact that Ego actually killed Peter Quill's mother. He gave her the tumor, so the reason she had brain cancer is that he gave it to her because she was too much of a distraction to the work that he wanted to do, because he was in love with her. And it's like, that is pretty fucking deep. So of course Peter Quill tries to get revenge, starts shooting at him, and it goes through him. Like, we see all this energy inside him. He actually looks like Dr. Manhattan in that scene, and he's regenerating, and we see like the insides of him. He's got like this blue skeleton, and it really does look cool, and it wasn't what I was expecting, but I liked it a lot. So yeah, the final action scene, this really cool scene where Peter Quill goes straight up against Ego. He's this big rock version of himself, and Star-Lord becomes Pac-Man, obviously, and I really like that. So yeah, the scene with the death button with Baby Groot, that actually plays in quite a lot towards the final sequence. He actually is the one to blow up Ego and save the world, so I really did like that. And that is where Yondu's emotional arc comes into play, because we found out the reason that Yondu didn't take Peter back to his father is because he knew this was going to happen, because we see all of his dead children. Like, there's so many of them. We just see these bones scattered around. And it's like, I don't like this guy one bit. Kurt Russell was really great in the role, of course, but it was like, holy fucking crap, that is very, very deep. So yeah, this movie is way more emotional than you think it's going to be. We get flashbacks and see Peter with his mother listening to music, and that's where his love of music comes from. And it was just such a great scene. I love the line when Yondu saves Peter from the planet as it's blowing up. He says to him, "He may be your father, but he's not your daddy." And I was thinking, oh no, this is going to make me cry. And you can sort of see where it's heading. You can see where Yondu is heading at this point. And it's like, no, I can't be dealing with this. And then Yondu flies Peter off the planet, gives him his final spacesuit, and then yeah, Yondu does die. And that's what I was saying. I was surprised that Yondu had such a big part in this movie, because in the first one, he's in it and he's funny in it and he's good in it, but it's like he never had that much of a story. And in this one, it's like, holy crap, Yondu really does play into this movie quite a lot more than I expected. So we find out that yeah, Peter was looking for his father this whole time, but it turns out his father was right in front of him the whole time, and it was Yondu. And I really liked that. Like, it could have felt rushed if they'd done it differently, but the way it was done, it was like, yeah, I really like this. And then Sylvester Stallone's character, who is head of the Ravagers, and Starhawk, which is great, he turns up and they have a funeral for Yondu. All the Ravagers are there, and it's like, it's great. It's really nice. You see these fireworks going off, and it was like, yeah, I really do like this. I'm sad that Yondu's gone. It would have been great to see him in Infinity War, but I like the way that they did have his send-off in this film, and I like the way that he was such a great character. So that was really good. Let's get on to the ending of the film and the post-credit scenes. So Kraglin, played by Sean Gunn, actually has quite a big part in this film, actually. He in the first one, he was just sort of Yondu's right-hand man, but in this one, he sort of helps with the prison escape. He helps save Yondu and Rocket. He helps Baby Groot out. And that was really nice to see. It was nice to just see him have a bigger part. I liked him in this film. So the first post-credit scene is him with Yondu's fin, and he's trying to control the arrow, and it just hits Drax straight in the shoulder. A lot of the post-credit scenes are kind of jokey ones. There are a couple that do set up for other things, but that one definitely didn't, unless they're going to have him have a big part in Infinity War, which I highly doubt, but maybe Volume 3, we don't know. The next one is Sylvester Stallone as Starhawk, and we see the original Guardians. Now, I never really read the Guardians comics, so I didn't really know this, but I know who they are now. You got Charlie 27, played by Ving Rhames, I think its name is. And there's I don't know exactly what her name is. I think it's Mainframe, played by Miley Cyrus. I feel like maybe the next one will have the new set of Guardians, but I don't know if that'll have too many characters, because I heard Adam Warlock was cut out of this because of that. But speaking of Adam Warlock, he also gets his own post-credit scene. We find out the Sovereign survives, or at least Aisha survives. And I thought it was an Infinity Stone at first, but it's not. She's actually birthing Adam Warlock, and it's like, holy crap, Adam Warlock's going to be in Volume 3. I hope he plays a big part, and I feel like he could play a big part in Infinity War Part 2, because I guess Part 1 won't be happening with Adam Warlock because of the fact that Guardians 3 didn't come out at that point, but maybe they'll bring it out before Part 2. It hasn't been, the film's been confirmed, but it hasn't got a date yet, so we don't know that. But yeah, Adam Warlock's in this movie. Next post-credit scene is Groot as a teenager, which was really funny. I really liked seeing that. He's playing video games, and Star-Lord walks in on him, and he's like, I'm sick of tripping over all of these vines and stuff. And we just see him playing video games and being a mouthy teenager. That was great. The last one, that's when we get the confirmation, the full confirmation of Stan Lee being the Watcher. He mentions all of the times he's seen things in the past. He talks about when he was a FedEx man, like in Captain America Civil War. Remember that Tony Stank scene? And it was like, holy crap, that's why he's in all of these movies. So next time you see him in a Marvel movie, I'm guessing Spider-Man Homecoming, just know that he's the Watcher. So that was really good as well. So that's all of the post-credit scenes. The other Watchers just sort of get up and leave Stanley on the moon or wherever it is in his spacesuit. You gotta feel bad for the guy. But yeah, I do really like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I did like the direction they took Kurt Russell's character in the end. I think they did quite well with Ego. And I definitely will be watching this movie again. It's worth it just for the soundtrack alone, but it's still a very good movie as well as the soundtrack. So go and check it out if you haven't already. Let me know what you think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and of the spoilers that take place. Comment below. So remember, even if you're not watching this video, don't read the comments section because there could be some spoilers in there too. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.